and gentlemen, and welcome back to SF Live. I'm your host, Myrna Lim. Tonight, we're so delighted to have as our guest one of the most important leaders in the city of San Francisco. This gentleman was appointed by former mayor, now current Lieutenant Governor Gavin Newsom, as a new district attorney who has taken over the seat of Kamala Harris, former DA, now Attorney General of the state of California. This gentleman has quite a colorful history, and he will be attesting to that. Guess what? He was born in Havana, Cuba. Well, I was attempting to go to Havana, Cuba from Cancun, but that's another story that we'll go into later. He graduated from Western University School of Law, and he has served as a chief of the police department of Los Angeles, later on in Mesa, Arizona, later on as a chief of police in the city of San Francisco, and then graduated to quite an effective role as a district attorney of the city of San Francisco. Welcome, sir. How are you?
I'm doing very well, thank you, Myrna.
So, how do you like campaigning?
Campaigning is fun. Fundraising is not fun at all.
Exactly. I know, it's very hard, isn't it?
Yes, it is, yeah.
But I think do you have public financing for district attorneys?
We do not. There is no public financing for the DA's office.
Oh, okay. All right, well, let's talk about the fun stuff.
Okay.
I was in Cancun, right? And I've always wanted to go to Havana, Cuba. You're from a working class family. Your uncle was imprisoned. He became a political prisoner under the Castro regime.
Mm-hmm.
He's still alive, right?
Yes, yes.
Still alive. Okay.
Yeah.
Anyway, and then you came here in 1965, 13 years old. Quite the success story from an immigrant boy at 13. Pulled yourself and your family by the bootstraps and worked very hard and lived the American dream. And now here you are, the district attorney of the city, the craziest city and county of San Francisco. So, do you remember much of the childhood that you can associate with? Is San Francisco very much different in terms of the Mission District, in terms of the diversity? And then, of course, you came from Mesa, Arizona, too, as a police chief there.
Right. Well, I mean, certainly when I came from Cuba in 1967, right, I moved into the LA area. So right, LA is a very diverse community. It's very Hispanic. Right. A large segment of the population of LA is Hispanic. So there was a lot of people speaking Spanish all the time, mostly from Mexico, not from Cuba. Mesa also has a high population of immigrants, so right, also a very diverse community. But I think San Francisco is undoubtedly one of the most vibrant, more complex cities in the world.
Right.
Not only are we diverse, but we're very densely populated, so everybody's very close to one another.
Right.
And it's a city that is very unique in many ways, politically, socially, and economically, and I really love the city.
Right. Now, you also served in the military. That's before you joined the police department, right? And you had also worked in business management. Now, what is it about your life story, your childhood, that pushed you into this direction of working in the military, joining the police department, LA, in Arizona, San Francisco, and now a DA?
Well, there are several things. My immigrant experience, like many others, I think,
right,
is we come here to work.
Right.
My family were blue collar workers, but everybody believed in working and working hard. So that was instilled in me very early on.
Right.
We also felt a tremendous amount of gratitude to this country.
Right.
And my going to the military was almost like it was a debt of honor, if you will. My dad was very proud of the fact that I was joining the American Armed Forces, and so that was that kind of was one of our ways to pay back, if you will, for what this country's done for us. We felt very welcome from day one and given a lot of opportunities, and not necessarily easily. I mean, there's a lot of hard work, but we were very proud of being part of this nation. My experience in policing really came later, as I wanted to engage and work in communities very similar to the ones that I was raised in. I was raised in a very poor environment,
Right.
where there were not a lot of opportunities for some people, and I felt that that was a way for me to continue to give back. In between that, I had work as a part-time employee for private enterprise while I was going through college, involved in sales of an automobile dealership. And while I was in the police department, I was given the opportunity to go back, quite frankly, for a substantial pay increase as a manager, and I did so. And during that period of time, I continued to be a volunteer police officer, and did very well financially. But I realized that that really wasn't my calling,
Right.
so I returned to the police department and never looked back. But it offered me a tremendous opportunity to understand the ultimate level of accountability, and that is that you have to meet payroll every 2 weeks.
Right.
Because if you don't, not only are you responsible for yourself as a manager, but you're responsible for everybody else that works for you. So I was able to develop a different sense of urgency about how to get things done, and a different level of commitment to outcomes. And that was very helpful for me when I came back into the policing, because while I was very committed to public service, I also was very committed to make sure that it was done right, and it was done in a way that it made financial sense. And I think that when the two came together, it allowed me to be very successful.
Right. Right. Now, when you look back at your experiences, what is the common thread from being an immigrant to coming to America to being the police force and now as a DA? What is it that when you look back at your life history, at your professional history, at your experience, and say, yep, this is I'm at today, this is the culmination of most of the things I've accomplished in life and in
Right.
my professional and personal life? What is it?
Yeah, I would say that probably commitment to public service.
Right.
I have been very committed to serving others my entire life. Even during the time that I was in private industry, I was doing volunteer work, working large number of hours doing volunteer work. And frankly, the reason why I'm here as a district attorney now is because I feel that, given my background,
Right.
given my professional experience, that I can make a tremendous amount of difference in not only helping San Francisco become a safer community, which was my commitment from day one when I came here, right down to working in homicides and reducing homicides from nearly 100 a year to under 50 in 2009, and then 50 in 2010. But more importantly, working with the community, understanding that simply arresting people is not the solution to public safety, that actually creating opportunities for young people. So I've worked with young people all of my life, but here, for instance, we work with the YMCA, providing opportunities for young people that are having problems in school or having early problems with the criminal justice system, trying to
Right.
get them out of there, because I recognize that the future of our collective safety lies in us being able to give opportunities to young people so that they can stay away from a life of crime. Another thing is that, frankly, we are at a very critical point in our criminal justice system with the realignment of our criminal justice system as a result of AB 109, which basically has now, effective October 1, is going to put the responsibility for the custody of many people that traditionally would have gone to state prison
Right.
back into the counties. Is going to create a different dynamic, and it's going to require that district attorneys become much more sophisticated about the way that we do our work. Previously, when we had a problem person, it was very easy to prosecute him and send him to state prison. What we're going to be facing beginning October 1 is that a lot of the people that we used to send to state prison are no longer going to qualify for that. And there's not going to be enough room in the county jails to
Right.
incarcerate everyone that we would normally have sent to state prison. So there's going to have to be a more sophisticated way of evaluating risk,
Right.
and being able to develop the outcomes that are going to reduce reoffending, are going to face the reality that we have limited space, and provide good public safety. So the district attorney is going to be a critical point in working with other partners in the criminal justice system to make sure that we prosecute cases in a way that it makes sense in order to enhance our ability to provide for the safety of our community. And that, to me, is a tremendous challenge, and it's a great opportunity for me. Frankly, I've spent a large part of my career working to reduce incarceration. I have worked with think tanks at Harvard University, as well as the Council of State Governments Justice Center, in a concept called justice reinvestment, where we actually work with state governments to reduce prison, to reduce prison population, and taking some of the funding and those savings and reinvesting it in community-based networks. So while these are tremendously difficult times, there are also times for opportunity. And what I did from day one when I came to the DA's office is actually start structuring our office in preparation for realignment to be able to work with the adult probation, work with the sheriff department and others in order to make this work and make it work right. I have also engaged other regional leaders. For instance, last week, 2 weeks ago now, I hosted a Bay Area counties symposium on realignment and invited district attorneys from all the other 9 counties, judges, public defenders, adult probation, and community-based organizations. And we came to have a very, very intense dialogue about how do we work together in order to make this work, because it's not good enough for us to do well in our city. If surrounding counties are not doing well, that's still going to have a regional impact on us. So we work together.
Let's talk about the district attorney's office. Let's talk about the nuts and bolts of the district attorney's office. How different is your administration from Kamala Harris's vision of running the district attorney's office? Obviously, we have seen such transitions from the time of Arlo Smith, and then Terrence Hallinan, and then Kamala Harris. And in my mind, one of the key aspects of Kamala's administration was talking about the truancy in schools and focusing on the youth. And also, if I remember correctly, trying to make the district attorney's office a lot more professional, quote, than the previous administration. So what do you think of your administration going forward?
Yeah, well, first of all, I have a tremendous amount of respect for Kamala Harris. Kamala Harris actually endorsed me, and we have a tremendous amount of mutual respect. And one of my goals is to continue to enhance many of the programs that she started. So, for instance, in the area of truancy, we're continuing now. Now we're actually taking it to the next level and moving more into the middle schools and high schools, as well as continuing the work that she did that was very effective with the elementary school. And part of this is based on my own history that I've worked in truancy programs in other cities. The other thing is that we're working to enhance and enlarge the program that she created called Back on Track. And Back on Track is basically a program that offers an opportunity to people that have committed drug and other minor offenses to actually work through the system. And if they complete the program, their records are expunged. So not only am I supporting Back on Track, but we're actually looking now to take it to the next level because I believe that it works very well. The other things that we're doing that are a little different is that we're now facing a different economic climate. With realignment, as I mentioned earlier, a lot of the people that under Kamala Harris's time were sent to state prison, we're not going to be able to do so. So what I have done is in my reorganization of the office, we are starting to take a lot of low-level offenses and removing them from the courts and taking them into what we call neighborhood courts. And neighborhood courts is a community-based arbitration system.
In the Tenderloin, the neighborhood?
Well, in the Tenderloin, we have the Community Justice Center, and that continues to be there. But that's like an intermediate step. Neighborhood courts are actually an arbitration model where you have neighbors, actually a panel of arbitrators that are neighbors. They adjudicate cases. The people that go there do not face any criminal consequences. The consequences are community service if they are found to be at fault. We don't use the term guilty because it's not a criminal court. And then provide sometimes they may have to provide restitution to the victim, but we also provide them services if they have a drug abuse problem or they have mental health. We can provide other services. Then the next level is the collaborative courts or diversion, and that's where the Justice Center comes in. And those are for people that are already beyond what we can do in a neighborhood court setting because they have reoffended multiple times, but most of their offenses are driven by drug use or mental health, and recognizing that incarcerating those people is not necessarily going to fix the problem, then we put them into these other programs, and that's also where Back on Track is, although Back on Track is not necessarily for people with mental health. And then while we're doing all of that, we are creating the space to be able to deal with violent crime, because one of my main concerns is that we must deal effectively with violent crime. While it is nice to do all these other things, if we have violence in our streets, then everything else will fall apart. So we have to be able to very aggressively deal with violence. So one of the things, for instance, that I did is we had a backlog in homicide prosecutions. We have moved very aggressively to start cleaning out that backlog, because we want to make sure that people that have trials pending for homicide, that they're going to be dealt with effectively. So basically what we have done is, in the prosecutorial side, we have kind of broken things into 3 areas. Really low-level stuff, taking it out of the courtroom and putting it into a restorative justice model, neighborhood-based arbitration. Mid-level, that is driven by drug abuse or mental health, in a collaborative fashion where they are not incarcerated, but they're held accountable to work through a program, and then creating the space to deal with the violence or deal with people that fail in the other 2. We're also continuing the programs with the schools, as Kamala did, because that's very important. So not only are we pushing to reduce truancy, but also working with kids and providing other opportunities. So for YMCA, for instance, providing internship opportunities. And then we're taking our victim services, which is another part of our office, and moving them into the community, because we know that a lot of the more vulnerable victims, like the elderly or recent immigrants or victims of domestic violence, often are not going to come to us for help. So we're actually providing the services in the community, and we're doing so in a way that is both effectively from a legal sense, but also providing for cultural sensitivity. So we have people that speak multiple languages, because we know that often a victim, especially one that is a monolingual speaker, if it's Chinese or Spanish, again, they're going to have other problems, and we want to make sure that the services are tailored to their needs.
In terms of workflow, how much of your cases are just like misdemeanor, nonviolent sort of offenses, and how many staff are assigned to that, as opposed to, say, the violent crimes, the homicides, and so forth? Well,
the majority of the cases, thankfully, are misdemeanors and are nonviolent. I mean, if the reverse was the case, we would be in a state of siege. So we handle anywhere from 15 to 20,000 cases a year.
Wow, that's a lot of cases.
A typical prosecutor in the misdemeanor court could be handling between 200 and 400 cases. And the reason for that big spread is because sometimes the workload varies depending on cases that are continuing. And what we're trying to do with the misdemeanor cases, take about 20% of those cases and moving them into neighborhood courts to create more space. Then the balance is going to be cases that are the more serious cases. So for instance, homicides right now, we have approximately 100 homicide cases that are current cases that are pending, and there are different levels of work. When I came in the office, we had a backlog that would go back as far. There were some cases that were as old as 7 years old, so we're trying to clear those old cases. At the same time that we're trying to work on old cases, what we call cold cases. So for instance, this year we prosecuted a homicide from 1976. So we're also going back to cases that are 20, 30, 40 years old.
Well, let me ask you something in terms of the prison systems. I guess part of the challenge of law enforcement today is that with the California's budget, the governor has cut a lot of the monies from the court system, which then means that there's going to be inadvertently some backlog in terms of processing some of those cases, and then you'll see an influx of prisoners from the state trying to get them into the county and the city systems. So how do you preserve, though, the liberties, the rights of people who have been accused of certain crimes, that they don't stay in prisons waiting, just waiting for their case to go through the system, the trial and so forth? How do you handle that?
Well, I mean, first of all, constitutionally, you have a right to speedy trial, right? So if a criminal defendant demands a speedy trial, we have to give it to them or we have to release him. So no
Right.
one will stay in jail for an extended period of time
Right.
because there is no space. We either have to prosecute him or
Right.
we have to release him. Fortunately, while the cutbacks are impacting the courts significantly, most of the
Right.
impact has gone to the civil courts.
Right.
So in San Francisco, probably between 20 and 22 civil courts will be closed.
Right.
The criminal courts, by and large, are going to remain untouched.
You know, time is going so fast. We're going to start talking about your campaign. We only
Okay.
have a minute and a half.
Okay.
A minute and a half left. All right, let's talk about your campaign. How do you like campaigning? I think I had to ask you that.
Yeah, I love campaigning. I love getting out there, talking
Right.
to people. As I indicated before, fundraising I hate, but it's a great opportunity to meet a lot of people that you normally wouldn't.
Right.
You
You have a
know,
good
I've already-
staff. You have
Yeah,
you got a
outstanding-
great campaign staff.
have
You got Maureen.
outstanding
giving you-
staff. Where our message is resonating. We got
Right.
tremendous amount of support. Got a lot of endorsements, a lot of good endorsements. Kamala
Right.
Harris, Dianne
Right.
Feinstein, Gavin Newsom, the
Right.
Police Officer Association, San Francisco Sheriffs. If you go to labor, local 2, the building trades. I mean, I can go on and on and on.
Right. Okay, how do they contact you? We have 40 seconds.
Right. The best way is to go to my website, Gascon.mp4. If you go to Gascon.mp4, you will see that there are many opportunities to get involved. You can volunteer, you can provide funds, you can post a sign on your window or your business. So I encourage everyone to go onto our website to get more information.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, there we go. 22 minutes is just not enough. His discussion is so engaging, so we were not able to cover a lot of the areas that we needed to. But anyway, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us tonight, and go to DA Gascon's website, and thank you very much for joining us. And good night. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Great. My pleasure.